All right, finally getting around to making this video. This is my 2013 Porsche 911 Carrera 2. And my last video, I installed a Mr. 12-volt CarPlay system. So I added Apple CarPlay to the existing PCM 3.1, the head unit. So that's been working fine, been very happy with it, but I want to add the backup camera. So I'm gonna do that install now. For those of you that don't actually have that particular unit, some of this video might still be useful because I do need to do the mechanical installation of the camera. So that gets installed into the bumper cover and then the wires run up to the front of the car. So that might be helpful. But anyway, that's the scoop. Now, what I did was I bought this camera. This was on Amazon. This was less than 40 bucks. I kind of did a little research. The specs on this are as good or better than many of the other cameras that are more branded, maybe, and certainly more expensive. But the video quality and specs for video are at least as good with this. Field of view, all that stuff. Then the question is, like, how is reliability, durability, the quality of this camera? There's a ton of reviews on Amazon. People seem to be very happy with it. So that's kind of my decision to go this route. And I'll try to put the name of this camera in my description. But really, all you're doing is looking at the specs. And, you know, you could go with a lot of different cameras. They're pretty generic. You know, the way they get mounted, you're going to drill a hole in the bumper cover, this gets slipped through, then it leaves you with this plug that gets plugged into this wire run that goes all the way to the front of the car, where that plugs into the Mr. 12 volt. It gives you leads to connect to your reverse lights. So when you put the car in reverse, it sends 12 volts through this lead, through the wire run to here. And then this gets connected to a signal lead in the Mr. 12 volt system. So it knows, hey, you know, we're in reverse, display the rear camera. So that's how that works. Anyway, let's get in the car. Before I actually start any of the installation, I want to wire it up and make sure that I do get the video the way I expect to. And then if that works properly, then we'll start the install. All right, so I've got the top down, easy access. And if you guys saw my video of installing the Mr. 12 volt system, you know that I installed the box behind the carpet on the passenger side. I kind of struggled with where to put that, and that ended up working out really well. So what I need to do is I need to pull the carpet back, but to do that I need to remove the trim panel here, trim panel there. I'll probably just grab clips from the other video and put that in there, and then we can wire up the camera, power it up, and see if it works. But before I do, I also want to mention this, ultimatecupholders.com. I found that, I think it was a forum member that came up with a clever solution for a cup holder. And people piled in and wanted one, and so he started selling them. So this thing's great because I can have my coffee in the morning and still have my phone here. Because as you know, the OEM cup holders, while they're not great, but in my case, they also swing out and it hits the phone. So with this solution, I don't have to worry about it. And my wife likes it when she's in the passenger seat. So anyway, I'm going to remove that and remove the trim. The next shot will be with the box. All right, here we go. We've got the trim out. The carpet is not held in with any fasteners. You just basically pull it. It's kind of molded to fit in a certain spot. And this is where I just put this blue box out here. And the rug goes right over it. You don't see it. You don't feel it. Okay, so here are the connections. This is for the backup camera, right? And that's going to go to that RCA. And then there's a lead called reverse lights, this green one. Now there's also one that says rear cam, 12 volt power. So it's going to be one of these two. So we're going to play around and figure that out. Now I can get 12 volts right here. There's a fuse panel. So let me get some jumpers and kind of assemble this wiring harness. I've got the camera there. That's going to get plugged in here. And then I'll just put 12 volts directly from the fuse box to there. We don't need to put it through this wire run. And we'll see if we get any video out of this camera. It's going to mount like that. So we'll see what happens. So let me get some stuff. All right, so I'm all set to try this, but let me just go through what I did. I found 12 volts in the fuse box, okay? So the fourth fuse in right there is tied to ignition, so when you turn the key, you get 12 volts. Now, I was just gonna run it right to the box, but I figure why not run it through the wiring, right? Through the camera wiring, make sure there's no breaks. So, all right, so I take my 12 volts there, I connect it to the positive on the lead. This is where this was going to go to the reverse light, tail light. So when the reverse tail light gets power, the power goes through the wire run. All right, here's my ground, just simply to body ground. Then at the other end, we've got the video connection here to the Mr. 12 volt. And then here's your positive 12 volts coming out, and that gets run right now. I'm going to try it to this one that's called reverse lights. So when I turn the ignition, this is going to get 12 volts. It should turn the camera on. So it's not going to be tied to reverse. It should just come on. So let's see what happens. And camera's dangling here, okay? All right, guys, here's what I've got right now. So using that green lead that says reverse lights, you put 12 volts, you get your video. It actually does track with the steering wheel. So it's not running, so it's hard to turn, but it is using the track of the steering wheel. So anyhow, looks like the wiring is legit. The way to wire it is clear. So now it's a matter of mounting the camera. So we'll start doing that. All right, car's up in the air with the wheels off so that I can get at the inner fasteners on the wheel well. And there's one here, one on the other side. Tail lights have to come out. There's some up here and some down there. All right, we've got 3 fasteners in each wheel well. 1, 2, and third one straight up here. All right, these are T30s and should just come right off. All right, with the spoiler up, you can get to the cover of the taillight bolts, and that's this plastic piece here. You basically got a clip here and a clip here, so you're gonna like pry up this way, and you can see them. You can see them right there, and they go in these slots right there and there. Okay, so this big one in the back right here, this is a T45. Okay, so T45. This one you don't have to worry about. This one is an adjustment screw. So when you go to loosen this, we need to retain the position of the nut that's underneath there. So we're gonna have to figure out how to hold it while we unscrew that. But let me get these. Okay, I want to loosen this T25 fastener. The nut underneath, I want to make sure it doesn't rotate, so I have a tool here that could hold it as I loosen it. But I'm just looking at it with a shop light here. It really didn't move. So use your judgment. It's a long screw here. But it didn't move. If it started to move, I had my tool. All right, I'm gonna take the tail light out, and there should be a connector. All right, so we've got 1, 2, 3, 4 T30 fasteners up here. This is on the top. Okay, the bottom fasteners are also T30. All right, let's keep going. We've got 2 fasteners here. Hopefully we see them. 1, 2. All right, and that's on both sides. Those are T30s. Okay, all the fasteners are off, so now it's a matter of lifting up and pulling it off of the brackets on both sides. All right, remember I said I have a flathead in my pocket? It was a good thing because this connector had to, see it? That connector had to come out of here, and this is kind of clipped against the bumper cover, so there was no play, but it was just a matter of putting the flathead into that space and twisting it. It releases the clip, and then you can pull on it. So anyway, here we go. We got the bumper off, bumper cover. All right, we'll be back. All right, with easy access to the air filters, you know I'm going to just take this apart right now and take a quick look at them. So let me do that. Okay, if you guys are going to do this while you're in there, the Torx is T25. And it's just 6 fasteners, and in my case the air filter looks really good. They must have replaced it relatively recently, so I'm happy. I'll just button it back up and we're gonna go back to the camera install. Alright, I think it would be easier to just put the wheels on, lower the car, because from this point on I've got to run wiring from above. I have to look down into the wiring and then bring it over through the car. So what I'll do is I'll move the bumper someplace safe and get the wheels on, lower it. Alright, so now I've got to figure out how to route the wire from the front of the car to the back. Okay, so right now, if I try to come through this tail light area, I need to figure out whether the wire can run underneath the top. So let me just show you something. Right now I've got the top up about 12 inches away from being closed, and let me see what I'm looking at. I've got this tripod here. Okay, so I've got everything positioned so that I can hold the camera and try to get this plug out. So you see this piece right here, okay, I believe that's supposed to come out, and just so you have a reference of where it is, there's the tail light, and I've got a light shining in there, but I don't see it here, but I bet when that plug comes out I'll see it. Let's see if this works. I cut it flush, you're still not going to have a hole straight through. You need to remove it. There's like a wall in that little plastic piece. So I tried pulling on it enough where I could cut it past the wall. I couldn't get a saw in there. So you know what, you guys are just gonna have to use your ingenuity and come up with a way to get a hole through there. The sheet metal has a hole, it's just plugged by that plug. Now in my case, this is what I used. All right, I just have a really long bit on, who knows what this is. You know, it's smaller than the sheet metal, obviously. And you really can come in at it at an angle. See the angle of that strut piece? The bit came in at that same angle. You don't really touch anything. And I was able to go right into the center of that plastic plug and push right through it, drilled right through it. Now, that means there's a hole there, okay? So what I did was I put my flashlight into the plug and I look through this hole right here and I'm able to see it. So I know I have a through hole that'll get me to over here. All right, so that's half the battle. So now I know I can get the wire now I know I can get the wire to here. Now I still have to navigate this and get into the car and come in, hopefully, you know, right around this area. So that's the next step, is trying to figure out how to get it from there into the car. So let me work on that and I'll be back. Okay, with the top in this position, I was able to run the fish. You can see it to the right of that plastic tray and underneath, and then it came out right here. Okay, I didn't really expect that it was going to make it through. I was just kind of playing around, and now that it's through, I'm like, oh geez, I should run the wire right now. But I really kind of want to start at the front and work my way through all of the trim pieces, and then get to here and then come up from inside into there and then keep working my way back. Now let me just show you something. Again, this is the piece that will come out at the end, but look at this. That's a big molded piece that has the power wires, and had I known this, maybe I would have looked for a different camera, just because that's going to be a challenge to get that big thick piece through everything. But I'm going to try, and I'll figure it out, I'm sure. But okay, so like I said, I've got the fish all the way through, but I'm not ready to put that wire through. So here's my thought. I'm going to take this this piece of wire, I'm going to pull it through. Okay, so I have a wire that's run from one side to the other, and then I'll use this as my fish when I get to it. So for now, let me run this piece of wire through, and then I'll have a way of pulling the camera wire through to the back. Okay, so feeling pretty good about the route. We're gonna go underneath here. We're gonna go under this rubber molding, underneath this plastic trim, along the seat here, and then we're gonna come up behind this trim panel. Now this is a fish here, fish line right here. So now I can bring this up, then I'll tie it to my wire and then bring it through. So let's start doing that. Okay, I think you can see this. So I've got this jack zip tied to the fish line, and let's see if I can just pull it through. There seems to be a lot of room here. Of course, this is the big piece right here. And here we go. Okay, I want to give you the roof height for reference when I go to pull this. And the other thing is you want to lift up this part of the top, right? Otherwise it's going to be resting on that rug. So I've got about 8-inch rise here. You can only go so much because there's cables on it, but you're going to want to lift that so that you can get at this side, and that's where the cable should come through. Now I put a tie wrap on here, and let's start to give this thing a pull and we'll see what happens. Hey, look what I have. We're getting there. We still got that big thick barrel. Okay, that made its way through. Now that's going to be the challenge, to get that through the cap. That cap that we tried to drill a hole through. Alright, so what I need to do is put this fish line through here and try to get through where the cap is. Now the cap's kind of mutilated at this point. I used a bigger drill. It wouldn't push that way, which is just as well. I didn't want a loose thing floating around in there, but it's pretty much hacked up now. Hopefully I can get both the connector and that big barrel piece through. Alright, so let's see if we can get the fish line to the cap. And what I've done is I've got a flashlight shining through the cap hole, and this hole, I'm looking through this and trying to guide my fish wire here. And it's just going to be a lot of trial and error, but once I see it close, then I can kind of guide it. So anyway, I'm not going to bore you with it. I'll be back when I've got it through. Okay, so you can probably see where that cap was. Now I've got I got that fish wire, that thick gauge wire through, and then I actually fished this thinner wire through because I wanted to secure it to this barrel and pull it with the wire rather than that thick stuff. So I'm going to guide it through the hole. This is going to take 2 hands, and then hopefully I can get this bigger piece through, and then hopefully I'll be home free. We'll see what happens. Alright, we finally got this through and pulled it with this wire. Basically, I just had to hack away at that cap enough to fit these big pieces through. And here's a tip. See this hole? You can actually go straight through this hole with a long screwdriver, a flathead, and just kind of poke at that cap and cut it and twist it, and you know, until you get a big enough hole to fit everything through. So also, when you put your shop light on this side, you can look through, you can see the shop light, and then when you put your fish wire through here, you can actually guide it and get through the cap. Okay, so this is kind of important to have this hole. Okay, let me show you. We've got 12 volts on ground, and this pin, which is the blue with the black stripe, and that's the tail light plug. So I've got to tap into that plug. So I just wanted to verify because I wasn't certain about which wire energizes when you put it into reverse. So right now the car is in reverse and we've got voltage, and when I take it out of reverse it goes down to 0. Alright, so what I just did was similar to what we did earlier, putting power through the cable to the Mr. 12 volt to see if we get video. I've got the camera right there. This time the power came through the reverse light lead. And I also had the negative to ground. I had that attached to ground. So I got video that worked fine, and I came back here and I disconnected ground, and sure enough I still continued to get video. So the Mr. 12 volts picking up its ground from other means. It doesn't need this lead, which is good. So I only have to connect one wire, which will be tapped in on the blue lead with the black stripe. Okay, so I stripped back this a little bit so I can see more of this blue lead. And what I'm going to do now is just slowly strip back the insulation. Alright, so I've got the reverse light lead stripped back, and I can take the power wire from the camera cable and solder that on here and tape it up. So let me do that now. Okay, it's soldered and taped, and I just need to figure out the routing. This is just temporary for now, but let's go to the bumper and install the camera. Then we can kind of figure out where all this is going to go. Okay, I've got my center line marked, and we're going to drill this hole right now. Okay, so what I'm going to do is get some Loctite, and I'm going to mount the camera, and we'll figure out where the wires go. Alright guys, you're going to like this one. So I go to put the nut on, and it's binding, and it feels like totally different threads. Like, I don't want to force it. Like, it stopped. Like, I would have to get a wrench on this. I can't even, I mean, I don't want to bend the threads. But bottom line, the hardware is wrong. Whatever nut this is, there's no damage to the threads. I think they just gave the wrong nut. Okay, looking at the threads on this, it looks like there was a machining issue, because the threads are cut except on 2 points. There, it doesn't look cut as deeply, and there, and I think that's what's going on. The nut can't really catch because of the high spots in the threads. So that's really annoying. I mean, you know, I should not have to deal with this, but let me figure out what I'm going to do here. Okay guys, so the nut was fine. Like I said, the threads on the camera were not cut properly, weren't machined properly, and what I did was I just kept working the nut onto the thread. It seems like the first few were the worst, so I had to really stabilize the camera and put a wrench on this and kind of push through. But it should be okay now, but I will warn you, you don't want to put blue thread lock on threads and then touch plastic, because it'll do damage to plastic. So I had to be really careful I didn't get any of that on the lens. So anyway, that was my experience. Hopefully you guys don't have to deal with that. Okay, this is how I ran it. I kind of coiled it up here, ran it out to here. If I'm not happy, I can move it, but I won't know until I put the bumper up. So now I'll have two connections, the main one here for all the lights, and then the camera on this side. So I think what I'll do is raise the car up so that I can put the bumper back on. Let's see what happens. Alright, trying to get you a shot here before we put the bumper back on, but I've got things zip tied. We've got a little jacket that goes over the wiring through here, and then I've got this secured to this piece here, which leaves this, and then we've got this. So I don't know how much will be dangling. I may need to secure it a little bit more as I go to put the bumper cover on, but I think we're ready to do that now. All right, the bumper's on. I only have a couple fasteners on it, but basically I just put it on this box, and it was actually really easy to get it back on. And I want to put the light in, make sure everything fits here. But before I do, I wanted to point out this large fastener. This did not have to come out, so I removed it. But actually, there's only 2 bolts that hold the light in here. So just FYI, you don't have to remove that. All right, we're going back in the car. I've got the roof in this position so that this flap goes up, and then you can see the wire, and that's the camera wire right there, and it comes out down here. So I'm gonna tuck it like this until I end up over here. I don't know if I can catch that with the camera, but you can see it's just a matter of just pushing it underneath and then going down into there. If there's any troubles or any challenges, I'll let you know, but I'm going to do that and then we'll be back over here. All right, you can see I came out over here, just tucking in under this weather stripping. All right, so now I'm here. I'm going to do this, go under here, and then I'm going to bring it under here like that, then up, and then over. All right, we have a little more soldering to do, so let's take care of that. All right, guys, we're all done with the install. I've got the rug back, cup holder. Let me put the top up. All right, so let's try out the camera. The motion sensors are going off. All right, look at us. We've got reverse camera. And it is following the steering wheel. Very nice. All right, the final installation. We're all done. I'm gonna give this car a bath. It's filthy. So again, this is a convertible. So you guys with coupes, you're gonna have a different installation when you get around this area. Unfortunately, I can't help you with that, but for owners of the Mr. 12 volt system, you did get to see how it connects, and you saw the functionality. I've got the steering guides and the camera, which is great. So hopefully this video helps you guys with your projects, and good luck.